The week of September 8-12 lands like a controlled detonation at Forrester Creations, timed, clean, and devastating. Rich Forrester looks Taylor Hayes in the eyes and ends it. Not with hedges or pauses, but with a sentence that closes a door for good. And the shock doesn't linger in the air, it drops straight into everyone's chest at once. The cancellation of vows becomes final, the promise is retired, and there is no soft landing. Monday begins with a room staged for reconciliation, a jacket draped over a chair, a glass of water sweating on the conference table, a bouquet someone sent to make the office feel less clinical, and ends with Taylor standing upright because collapsing in front of him would surrender more than she's willing to hand over. She thanks him for the clarity he never offered when it might have spared months of strain, accepts that the future she had sketched won't be drawn, and walks out carrying nothing but her dignity. Rich stays planted in the quiet and does not chase her, because chasing would be worse than the sentence he just delivered. He knows what pursuit would look like under cameras and within the family echo chamber, and he refuses to start another cycle he cannot finish. By Tuesday, the narrative hardens. Taylor is done waiting for a man who cannot commit to the version of love she deserves. The engagement is not paused, it is erased. And the ground rules inside the Forrester and extended Logan orbit shift because a triangle that defined entire years suddenly snaps into a line with two endpoints moving away from each other. Grief has its own chemistry, and Taylor does not misread the symptoms. She recognizes the tremor in her hands when she tries to sign a discharge summary at the hospital. The way noise becomes a blade, the way well-meaning comfort floods the room until breathing feels like work. She declines the crowd, declines the open-ended phone calls, declines the chorus of "you're strong" when what she needs is silence dirty enough to rebuild in. She makes a decision with no drama, no press release, no cliffside monologue. She will leave Los Angeles to heal on her terms, off the grid, where the city's appetite for spectacle cannot swallow her progress whole. The choice is immediate and practical. Pack lightly, call the airline, inform the medical board of an approved leave. Choose a destination where a doctor can be a person without becoming a headline. It is not abandonment of her life here. It is a strategy to keep that life viable. Steffi hears the plan and refuses to let her mother disappear alone into a recovery that could turn into isolation. She puts her own career on hold, pulls out of the next Forrester rollout, and tells Rich face-to-face that this is not punishment, it is protection. She will escort Taylor out of town, shield her from the flashbulbs waiting at Lax, handle the logistics, and sit beside her until the danger of relapse into old patterns is past. The show within the show effect is intentional. Steffi's temporary exit becomes story fuel instead of a hole in the canvas. Her absence is a statement that family comes first, that the battles over catwalks and contracts can wait, that the next time she walks into the Forrester lobby she won't be the daughter on defense, she'll be the executive with a blade for a spine, ready to write a new set of rules. While mother and daughter book flights and lock down an itinerary that keeps the paparazzi guessing. Zurich decoy, small coastal clinic 2 hours from Barcelona. A borrowed apartment in a town where the ocean is louder than gossip. Los Angeles devours the news of the breakup like it was engineered for sweeps. Fashion blogs run Rich and Zetagan. Talk shows rehearse the tired question of whether he will slide back to Brick by Friday. And the business pages ask the only angle they care about: does personal fallout endanger the quarter? Eric does triage in-house with the steadiness of a man who survived 100 public storms. He drafts a unified memo that reduces the chaos to bullet points. Leadership is stable. Product timelines are intact. Creative will not be driven by personal narratives. And anyone who weaponizes private pain in a professional setting can find the exit. Carter runs point on legal exposure, reviews non-disclosure provisions, and quietly reminds security that unwanted press inside the building is trespass, not glamour. Hope scans the horizon for damage to her line and, seeing the usual speculation piling up, insists on a runway of substance, fabrics, silhouettes, fit instead of letting headlines define her work. Brooke walks a knife edge between personal shock and public scrutiny. She did not ask for Rich to return, but part of her always anticipated it the way the tide expects the moon. And realizing that expectation is over feels like a phantom limb. Yet she refuses to be drafted as the fallback or the foil. She releases a statement that is not a performance she wishes Taylor space to heal, reminds the press that grief is not content, and declines to map her own future onto a man who just admitted he cannot be trusted with anyone's long term. The restraint reads as strength because it is. She's done apologizing for wanting happiness, and she's done signing up for emotional roulette. Thomas simmers, not because he wants his parents in a room together at any cost, but because he hates the way the family keeps returning to the same crossroads and calling it destiny. He stalks Ridge in the hallway and unloads a speech that doesn't spare feelings about timing, about respect, about the laziness of thinking history entitles anyone to endless second chance, but he does not escalate beyond words, because Taylor would call that a step backward he cannot afford. Finn stands at the Cliff House doorway and makes the case for measured exits. He'll support Steffi's absence because the woman he married will not be her best self until she knows her mother is safe. And nothing about their kids' stability gets better if Steffi stays in Los Angeles physically but vanishes emotionally. Liam hovers on the periphery with more humility than in past arcs. He doesn't try to center himself in a story that isn't his. He focuses on the children, coordinates pickups, and keeps his voice low in rooms that don't need another opinion. The calendar keeps marching. On Wednesday morning, Taylor and Steffi leave before dawn. They don't stage a goodbye at the house or turn the airport into an event. They slip out in the hour when the city still yawns. The only farewell Taylor grants is to the life she refuses to let calcify around pain. She writes a note to Thomas that is short, muscular, and clear. Keep building a self that doesn't need chaos to feel alive. I'll return when my feet touch ground again and not a minute earlier. She leaves another for Ridge because closure shouldn't always look like silence. She tells him she heard him, that she won't punish him with threats or with a performative breakdown, that she is choosing a future that does not orbit his indecision, and that if their paths cross again, it will be as two adults who stop confusing history with fate. By noon, the planes are in the air, the phones are off, and the city's attention ricochets to the only target still standing in the center of the ring, Ridge. Alone is the point. With Taylor gone and Steffi out of frame, the armor he borrowed from family Steffi's fierce defense, Taylor's composed presence, even the gravitational pull of Brooke's mythos stripped away. And he has to stand in the draft he created. Reporters sprint through a predictable gauntlet of questions he won't answer. Did another woman tip the scales? Will he pursue Brooke now that the runway is clear? Is this a midlife spiral disguised as noble honesty? He resists the urge to talk in riddles or to lean on charisma to blunt the edges. He issues one on-camera statement that lasts 40 seconds and says everything it needs to say. He ended the engagement because he could not make promises he believed in. The decision is final. Taylor deserves respect and silence to heal, and he will not be discussing his private life beyond this sentence. The brevity frustrates the entertainment shows, but the markets like it. Discipline reads as stability, and Forrester's stock of goodwill with buyers holds. Inside the family, however, brevity is not enough. Hope wants to know if he understands the blast radius, not in abstract terms, but in the direct math of how many times the team will have to build around a personal crisis if he refuses to stop generating them. Eric wants a plan, not a posture. He wants to know who is driving design while Ridge deals with blowback, which collections can be delegated without sacrificing signature, and which decisions require Ridge's hand and therefore must be postponed. He refuses to let this company become a minefield every time an adult man discovers a truth about himself too late. Brooke wants accountability, not a performance of remorse. She tells Ridge she is not here to scold him and not here to carry him. She is here to say she will not co-sign the next spin cycle. If he is serious about ending a pattern, he can prove it with boring decisions, clean handoffs, clear communication, a refusal to use any woman as an emotional layover. Rich listens because there is nothing else to do. The luxury of denial is gone, and the only way to make this week mean something is to put weight behind the words he said in that office. He starts by recalibrating the work. He elevates a trusted senior designer to lead the near-term collection, sits with the team to remove his name from deliverables he won't touch, tells PR to kill any campaign that leans on his image as a romance magnet, and instructs marketing to focus on crashed over chaos. He calls the buyers himself, not to grovel, but to confirm timelines. He gives them dates instead of adjectives. He meets with legal to review boundaries around press access so the building stops doubling as a backlot for heartbreak. He attends a single therapy session without making it a brand. He's not interested in a redemption arc scored to swelling strings. He wants a mirror, and he wants it now, without the varnish of celebrity. Meanwhile, in Europe, Taylor and Steffi land in a pocket of quiet that does not demand smiles on cue. The first days are not pretty. Grief looks like jet lag until it doesn't. Looks like a long walk that ends with shoes in hand. Looks like sitting across from a therapist who doesn't know her last name and therefore cannot load her sentences with 30 years of fan lore. Steffi does the simple work that is actually the hard work. Grocery runs, new SIM cards, a wall calendar with appointments she guards like crown jewels. Morning coffee on a balcony where the only camera is the sun. She watches her mother breathe in places that do not ask anything from her and starts to see the woman separate from the roles doctor, mother. EXO deserves mornings that aren't weighed down by the decisions of men who can't stop choosing drama. They talk about the return not as revenge but as renewal. If Los Angeles demands fire to pay attention, then they will choose the type of fire that builds, not burns. New initiatives at the hospital that don't carry the stink of gossip. Partnerships at Forrester that center wellness without turning pain into a parade. A public stance that rejects the old sport of throwing each other to the wolves to feed ratings. The phrase fiery re-entry stops meaning spectacle and starts meaning strength with a spine. Back home, the absence of both women resets the board. Thomas finds his center in work he can control. Finn keeps the home steady and the kids laughing. Hope and Brooke commit to a season of calm that feels almost radical in this address. Eric, seeing a rare window where the company can prove it is bigger than any one man's romance, pushes craft, drafts, and discipline to the front of the house. By Thursday, the city is bored enough with Ridge's refusal to bleed on camera that the press starts looking elsewhere for a mess. That is a win. By Friday, the week has hardened into a new status quo. Ridge is alone because he chose to be. Taylor is gone because she chose herself. Steffi is off the canvas for now because family is the only runway that matters when someone you love is limping. Brooke stands upright without asking the world to applaud it. And the family understands that the next time they see Taylor and Steffi, it will not be as women brandishing wounds, but as women who wrote their own scripts. The cliffhanger doesn't pretend the pain is solved. It does something braver in a show that profits off circular fights. It commits to the cost of clarity. Ridge must live in the space he made when he walked away, and he must prove with dull, repeatable choices that he is not a storm in search of a house to wreck. Taylor must heal where her name does not trend. Steffi must transform absence into an investment that pays off with purpose. Brooke must continue building a life that is not defined by anyone else's pattern. Viewers are left with a sharper question than who will Ridge choose next? A question that promises a blazing return instead of another loop. When Taylor and Steffi step back into Los Angeles, what will they demand from the city that fed on their heartbreak? And how different will everyone look standing in front of a woman who finally refuses to carry the weight for men who won't carry their own?